Today, it's why everything you think and know about business is a limitation, and it lowers profits, and so it really lets you stay in the bind of yesterday. But really, when it happens, it keeps your mind going. And when your mind is busy and you're thinking, you can never listen. And that's where people stay stuck. And that's what happens in life. And that's what happens to people. Happens to me. But when you're thinking, you stay. When you're thinking, your mind is busy and you're living from the past. And it keeps you stuck in the past. And that's where we stay stuck. And what really happens is a busy mind never allows you to move forward. And that's what happens. If you look at the world, and that's what happens in the world today, but it doesn't allow you to move forward. And I had a malfunction today doing this. I loaded the wrong script. But anyway, but really, when you're thinking and knowing, you shut off listening. And sometimes I do that in my life yet. You know, you can get all frustrated about something like this, but as long as nobody's bleeding or dying, it ain't a very big deal. That's the way I look at life now. So, to, tonight's program is 7 ways why everything you think and know about business unknowingly lowers profits. Because a thinking mind stops in the past and never comes forward. And I've learned that over the last 3 years, but I've awakened to understand that. That's why chaos comes in, because you have to do things right here. Chaos is a present moment liberation. Everything you think and know about business lowers profits because the mind only reacts with yesterday's logic, yesterday's fears, and yesterday's formula. The moment you rely on thinking, you stop perceiving. The moment you rely on knowing, you stop sensing. And the moment you stop sensing, you stop witnessing and observing the opportunity that's right in front of you, because chaos, challenges, that's all present moment awakenings. Because business knowledge is a museum. Profit is a live moment. Thinking makes you predictable. Awareness makes you profitable. The mind recycles, perceptions unveils. Every time you rise, every time you use what you know, you're dragging the past into the present and calling it strategy. I have, and I do. I still do. But I'm more cognizant of it, so I can ask the question, why am I going into the past? And a lot of the things out here in the physical world are egotistical illusions, keeping us staying the same. The market doesn't reward memory. It rewards and awards clarity. It rewards responsiveness. It awards a sovereign who perceives instead of the follower who repeats. And see, that's one thing I've noticed a lot in the marketing and stuff today. It's all repeat. And you got to open up to your own ingenuity. Profit rises the moment you stop reacting with yesterday's rhetoric and instantly navigate with today's awareness. Profit rises the moment you stop thinking and start perceiving. Profit rises the moment you stop knowing and notice what is going on in the world. You don't lose profits because you're wrong. You lose profits because you're late. Reacting with old logic to a fresh moment. Something else I took the word new and used fresh because fresh gives you an alertness. Thinking is delayed. Profit lives in the instant. Why everything you think and know about business unknowingly lowers profits because thinking and knowing trap you in yesterday's logic while profit lives in today's awareness. Business knowledge is always historical. It's built from what worked before, never what works now. And see, I took the word work out. What rises and liberates me to expand now. When you rely on thinking and knowing, you operate from memory, never perception. Memory repeats, perception innovates, profit rises only when you stop recycling old strategies and start sensing here and now opportunities. Why indoctrinated education and PhD programming destroy fresh awareness. Because indoctrinated education trains the mind to repeat, not to perceive. Schooling rewards memory, never awareness. PhD programming worships citations, never clarity. Both force you to think about life instead of sensing of life. And life is liberating invitation, fostering expansion. Fresh awareness dies the moment you trade perception for repetition. Because PhD logic replaces instinct with intellectual obedience. The system teaches you to trust theories, models, frameworks over your own inner signal. You learn to defer to experts, data, and best practices instead of your sovereign innovation, inspiration, and perceptions. Awareness collapses when you outsource your authority to academic approval. How have we done that in our life? Because indoctrinated knowledge keeps you loyal to yesterday's conclusions, while awareness lives only right here in the now. Awareness is built on present tense perception. When you rely on what you know, you drag old logic into the here and now. And the moment you do that, fresh awareness suffocates under the weight of outdated certainty. Because business knowledge makes you manage problems instead of perceiving the liberation and the possibilities to rise out of it. Thinking narrows, knowing limits, both keep you scanning for threats, inefficiencies, and fixes, all past-based challenges. But profit doesn't come from fixing it. Profit comes from perceiving openings the mind can never predict. When you stop thinking and start perceiving, you stop solving yesterday and instantly innovate, creating profitable outcomes today. Because thinking and knowing keep you predictable, and predictable business never outperforms the market. The mind loves patterns, formulas, and best practices. But the market awards originality, responsiveness, and instinct and curiosity. When you operate from knowledge, you behave like every other business. When you operate from awareness, you move where others can never see, witness, or observe. Predictability lowers profits, perception multiplies them. Why business knowing makes you react with yesterday's thinking. Because thinking and knowing are memory based, so they force you to respond to today with yesterday's mental inventory. And that's something you really want to rise out of, is the mental part. You want to rise of the listening uh, uh, liberation of it. The mind doesn't perceive, it recalls. So when something happens in the present moment, the mind meets it freshly. It searches, it archives for matching files. What means every reaction is a rerun from yesterday's scripts and repetitions. You're never responding to what's happening, you're reacting to what happened. Profit dies in that delay because business knowledge trains you to use prepackaged explanations instead of real time, here and now perceptions. The mind loves familiar narratives. That means X. This always leads to Y, and this is bad because Z, that this is bad because Z is yesterday. Those narratives are relics. And that's the way you look at it today. We're still trying to get out of, well, basically, we're still trying to get out of the 70s with the deal in Iran. We've not risen of communication, collaboration, and contours of our own talents. That's something you take contours and you allow yourself to see contours. Earth is a contour. You float around it. And when you have a challenge, if you start asking questions, they become a contour and you go around the situation while you dissolve the situation. You're never going this way. But contours are liberation. The same, and we have the same old explanation, same old fears, and same old strategies. Yet, we expect different results. And we've been playing in the Middle East since the United States, I don't know. But we've never risen anybody out of anything. That's because of their nervous system and their ingrained traditions, thinking, and knowing. Awareness sees actually what's actually happening. Knowledge sees what used to happen because thinking makes you predictable, and predictable reactions keep you locked in the past instead of navigating the now. That's what we're doing. We're rising, shining, and expanding through the now with natural optimistic wisdom. When you rely on what you know, you behave like a character following a script. When you rely on awareness, you behave like a sovereign navigating the here and now moments. Yesterday's thinking reacts, today's perceptions respond. Only one of these create profit, agility, and advantage, and a forward path. Why thinking and knowing destroy listening, questioning, hearkening the wisdom of the situation. Because thinking and knowing trap you in memory, while listening lives only in the moment. Thinking pulls from yesterday's files, knowing pulls from yesterday's conclusions. Both force you to meet today with archived reaction. Listening is born of the now. It requires presence, never memory. The moment you start thinking, you stop listening. The moment you start knowing, you stop perceiving and rising. Because knowing kills curiosity, and curiosity is the doorway to wisdom. That's a true statement. The mind that knows stops questioning. The mind that stops questioning stops awakening. Knowing says, I've already figured this out. Wisdom says, let me perceive and question and listen to what's actually here. When you cling to knowing, you block the very questions that would free you from the past and open the imagination that only exists and is expressed in the present moment. Because thinking reacts from habit, while hearkening wisdom responds from awareness. Thinking is reactive. It fires old rhetoric off, old fears, and old interpretations. Hearkening wisdom is responsive. It senses, discerns, and navigates the moment with clarity. Thinking repeats the past. Wisdom unveils the now. Imagination only rises when the mind stops recycling and instantly perceives the wisdom of now. Why business education and PhD programming originate from ancestor programming. Because both systems were built to enforce survival area obedience. Survival area obedience. Never the sovereign awareness of now. Business schools and PhD structures descend from ancient hierarchies where survival depended on following orders, never perceiving the here and now authenticity of the situation. Architecture is the same: memorize, obey, and perform, repeat. Ancestor programming dressed in academic robes, training you to survive old worlds instead of sense new ones. Because they glorify inherited knowledge instead of awakened perception. Ancestor programming says trust the elders, trust the past, trust the rules. Business education and PhD culture say the same thing: trust the models, trust the theories, trust the citations. Both worship what was, destroying what is. Fresh awareness dies when you're conditioned to bow to yesterday's conclusions. Because they reward predictable behavior that the exact trait ancestor programming needed to keep the tribe safe. That's what traditions are. You got some of these outlandish traditions. That's just to keep the tribe safe. Ancestors survive by conformity. Academia survives by conformity. Business education survives by conformity. Predictable, that kept the tribe alive, that keeps institutions in control. How's that one? That one's a very, very, very authentic statement. But predictability kills innovation, clarity, and sovereign imagination. Ancestor programming kept you safe. Business and PhD programming keep you small. That's a true statement. Why business education and PhD programming teach enslaving mindsets? Because they train you to obey frameworks instead of perceive reality. I use reality instead of reality because reality has your mindsets in it. Reality is what's right here. Business school teaches best practices. PhD culture teaches approved methodologies. Both condition you to follow pre-built structures instead of sensing what the moment actually requires. Obedience masquerades as intelligence. That's how awareness gets domesticated. Now that's a true statement. Obedience masquerades as intelligence, and that's how here and now awareness gets domesticated. Because they reward repetition of inherited logic instead of creation of original insight. You get praise for citing the past, never perceiving it and expressing the present, the inspirations of the present. You get rewarded for proving what's already been proven, never discovering what hasn't been seen. This is how the system keeps minds small: repeat, validate, conform, and perform. Fresh awareness can never survive in a loop built to recycle old conclusions because they never normalize hierarchy as authenticity or veracity. And something about truth. Truth is kind of fake and bake. because truth has your mindsets intertwined, and mindset is intertwined with the past. Making people dependent on authority instead of their own inner signals. Professors become the elders, institutions become the tribe, degrees become the permission slip to stay the same. This is ancient survival programming dressed up as modern education, teaching people to trust, trust, rank over intuition, approval over perception, and structure over sovereignty. Awareness collapses the moment authority replaces instinct with worn out enslaving mindsets. Why education shuts off inspiration, intuition, listening, and questioning. Because college trains you to think about life instead of listening of life. Academia replaces perception with analysis. It teaches you to dissect, categorize, and interpret all past-based mental habits. But listening is a present moment intelligence. The more you think, the less you hear. The less you listen and innovate. The more you analyze, the less you perceive. Inspiration dies the moment thinking becomes default instead of awareness. Inspiration is an awareness that entertains the brain, draining the thinking, knowing of the brain. Because knowing kills curiosity, and curiosity is the ignition point of intuition. College rewards certainty, correctness, and conclusions. Intuition requires openness, wonder, and never knowing. When you cling to what you know, you stop questioning. When you stop questioning, you stop awakening. Outdated thinking survives because knowing blocks the doorway to fresh insight. Because education conditions you to trust authority over your inner signal. Professors become the gatekeepers, curriculum becomes the script, grades become the leash. That's true. This trains you to defer upward instead of listen inward. As intuition, imagination, and present moment clarity only activate you when you stop outsourcing your perceptions and you start hearkening your own adventurous awareness. Why thinking and knowing never rise beyond ancestor survival mode programming. Because thinking is built from memory. Memory is built from survival. Your mind never thinks from truth. It thinks from history. Every thought is stitched from old reactions, old fears, and old interpretations. So when you think, you're never meeting the moment, you're replaying the lineage of yesterday. Survival mode programming is the source code of thought, so thought can never rise above it. The thought can never get beyond right here in your life because it can never get to here. Because knowing is recycled certainty inherited from people who are trying never to die. When you know what you know is rarely yours because all education is you inherited from somebody else. It's ancestral conclusions passed down as truth. Knowing is a mind clinging to old answers because old answers once kept the tribe alive. As survival answers block evolution. Knowing keeps you loyal to the past instead of available to the here and now. Because survival mode thinking reacts while awareness perceives. Thinking fires off old scripts that control your life. Knowing fires off old logic. Both are reflexes, never wisdom. Awareness is the only thing that sees the moment without dragging the past into it. That's why if you take no out of your life, I'm aware, I'm awakened and aware, but use that brings you to now. You rise beyond ancestral programming the moment you stop thinking and instantly perceive, listening, questioning, and expressing inspiration. While energized listening, maverick questions, hearkened wisdom, inspiration, intuition, imagination, innovation, revelations, and wisdom destroy indoctrinated thinking, learning, knowledge, and thoughts. Because energized listening bypasses the mind entirely, plugs you straight into the nowality of your life. Indoctrinated thinking is slow, recycled based, past based, whatever. Past based BS to me. Energized listening is instant, direct, and present moment. The moment you listen with your whole awareness instead of your conditioned mind, your old programming collapses. You stop hearing your thoughts and start listening to the vibrant veracity of your own curiosity and strength. Because maverick questions detonate the scripts that indoctrinate, depends on indoctrinated learning, survives through repetition. Maverick questions interpret repetition. They expose the assumptions, the inherited logic, the unquestioned beliefs. A single real question can vaporize 10 years. A single real question can vaporize 10 years of memorized knowledge because it forces awareness to rise where thinking used to react. Because hearkened wisdom activates imagination, intuition, innovation, and forces the mind to never control. Indoctrinated knowledge is rigid, wisdom is fluid. Indoctrinated thinking is predictable, intuition is wild. Indoctrinating learning is past tense, imagination is present moment magic. When these inner forces activate, the mind loses its throne and the past loses its grip. Revelations replace repetition, perception replaces programming, and awareness replaces thought, allowing you to rise, shine, and energize your day and instigate your inspiration that dissolves perfection programming. Inspiration dissolves desperation, unleashes wisdom, insight, and clarity for you to rise, shine, and energize your day, your life, and your dreams. Well, thank you. I am Robert A. Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom, and may your life be as blessed as you are a blessing